Today we're talking about Hagrid's motorbike adventure at Universal Orlando's Wizarding World of Harry Potter. That's episode 46 of the Go Inform podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 46 of the Go Inform podcast. My name is Maven, and I am your hostess here on the show. And today we are talking about the new roller coaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. It's an addition to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and it is called Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. I had a trip to Orlando not long ago, and one of the highlights of that trip definitely was getting to check out this new coaster that is a fantastic addition to not only to the Wizarding World there in Universal, but it's really a great addition to the whole roller coaster lineup too at Universal. So I am excited to give you kind of a review of what I thought about the ride. And this serves as a bit of an update to my episode number 5, which was my tour of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter there in Orlando. If you guys haven't listened to that yet, that's kind of a fun sort of way to imagine yourself wandering through the Wizarding World. And but at the time when I recorded that, we didn't have this coaster. We didn't even know what was coming to that space. And I'm pretty sure that I said something like, the Dragon Challenge is going to be closing and something new's coming here, and hopefully it's related to the Forbidden Forest. And sure enough, I guess Universal was listening, because that's what they put in place of the old Dragon Challenge coasters. So thank you, Universal. I didn't know I had that kind of power, but hey, sometimes you put stuff out in the universe and it just works out. Okay, so a little bit of background about this coaster. It opened in the summer of 2019, so it's been open for about 6 months, a little more than that at this point. It is super popular, you guys. This has just been really a pretty wild success in terms of crowd opinion about the ride, and it's well deserved. I found it to be super fun. Definitely is getting up into the top attractions in Orlando in my mind, and I really recommend that if you are going to be heading to Universal, that you check this out. As long as you're a roller coaster fan, because this is truly a real roller coaster. And if you're not a roller coaster fan, this may be a little too intense for you. So the theming of the Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure coaster, it's in the name. You get to ride on Hagrid's motorbike, his flying motorbike, through the Forbidden Forest, and you do get to meet a bunch of magical creatures along the way. So that's one of the things that makes this roller coaster different from the other ones that they have at Universal anyway, is that there's actually theming with the coaster, like quite a bit of it. So this roller coaster, you're going to see a full-size Hagrid audio animatronic figure. You're going to see some of these creatures. I will not spoil the whole thing here, but I'll just tell you that you really do feel like not only are you getting a great thrill ride here, but you're also getting to be part of the Wizarding World and the experience. And that just is exactly what I would expect. The entire Wizarding World is all about really feeling like you are in the Harry Potter universe. And even with a really thrilling roller coaster ride, they found a way to give you that same sort of an experience. So the way that the ride is laid out is it's a roller coaster train, like any roller coaster usually is. But instead of just like seats that you sit in, you actually ride in or on Hagrid's motorbike. So there's it's a side-by-side 2 people per row, and it's the motorbike and it's the sidecar. So you can decide if you want to ride on the motorbike and you get to, hold the handlebars and like feel like you're really riding it, or you can ride in the sidecar. And I recommend checking out both because each of them are a kind of a unique experience for how to experience a roller coaster. And so if you get the chance to ride more than once, switch spots so that you can try both. And the theming does extend out into the queue, much like many of the other attractions there at Universal. So when you are in line for the coaster, first of all, you can see it. When you're in the outdoor queue, you're going to be walking kind of alongside where the roller coaster is running. So you can see it going by, and that's pretty cool. Also from the queue, you have some great views of Hogwarts Castle because the location of this is in Hogsmeade Village, really close to Hogwarts Castle. So you can see the castle while you're waiting in the line, and you also get to walk right by Hagrid's hut. So it's got a very cool vibe. A lot of the queue for this ride is outdoors, which in the summertime is going to be not so fun. But good news, there's a whole bunch of real live trees that they've planted around the coaster. And as they grow up, there really is going to be a forest here. And I think that is really refreshing because a lot of these theme parks and really Universal this is true there for sure. There's just a lot of concrete and there's not a lot of living, breathing trees and green space and all of that. And so they've managed to come up with a way to build a roller coaster outside that's going to be surrounded by a forest. And as the trees grow up, that's going to provide a lot more shade, which will make it way more comfortable for people waiting in line. I was there in December, so that wasn't really a problem, but just keep in mind if you visit the park in any time around summertime, that is probably going to be a hot wait in that line. You can check out episode 28 if you want to get some of my summer weather tips, because if you're traveling there anytime between like May and October or so, you're going to want to be prepared for that, no matter what rides you go on. So make sure you check that one out in the archives. So Hagrid's coaster has a lot of really cool features that set it apart from almost anything else you're going to ride in Florida for sure. This is actually the longest roller coaster in Florida. It has 7 different launches during the ride. So some of this is because with this roller coaster, it's a roller coaster for a distance, and then it will slow down, and then you might see Hagrid or some kind of fantastic creature, and then it will kick off and launch, and it does this 7 times. So if you're a fan of coasters that launch you off the line, like the Hulk coaster at Islands of Adventure, it definitely does this. The Rock and Roller Coaster over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. If you like that kind of a launch, you get to do it 7 different times just on this one ride, which is really cool. This ride also goes backwards. I totally compare this to Expedition Everest, which is definitely one of my favorite coasters. That is over in Animal Kingdom. at Disney World, and that coaster also has a section where it goes backwards, and this one goes backwards and it's even longer than that one. So if you are a fan of Expedition Everest, you are really going to love this ride because it incorporates so many cool features. This also is one of the only coasters in the world that has a drop sequence. So there is a part of this ride where you're still in your roller coaster, you're on the track, and it drops. I don't know how they do it. It's really cool. It is not as extreme as like a Tower of Terror drop, but you definitely feel it. And it's a really neat aspect of the ride that's unexpected for a roller coaster. So they really did a great job of creating a unique ride, something that's really thrilling, that's got so many different experiences in the one roller coaster that you're going to want to ride it more than once for sure. Okay, so something to know, though, about this, and you've heard me say it before about some of the other rides at Universal, because this is such a complex ride with so many amazing features, there is a lot that can go wrong. And so the Hagrid's coaster ride is very prone to breaking down, and it happens a lot. It's been a big problem since they opened it, and it's still a problem now, even 6 months later. So you need to know that there is a possibility that when you visit Universal, you may not be able to ride this because there are times where during any given day, this coaster is not operating for a lot of the day, and then it just might not work out with your schedule. I'm sending every positive vibe I can your way to hope that you won't have that kind of a problem. But just, I want you to know, I think it's good to have realistic expectations when you're going to a trip like this. Just know that if there's a way for you to get on this ride, you should go, because there's a possibility that later in the day or another time that you're there, it won't be running. Because it breaks down like that, it only adds to the wait times, because this is a super popular ride. People are willing to wait. It's common for the wait time on this ride to be 2 hours or longer. So I really want to share with you some strategies to help you get on it without waiting like that, and, to really make the most of it. So if you have listened to pretty much any of my Universal Orlando touring advice, you probably expect me to say right now that the best thing you can do is get an express pass, because that will help you skip the line. Unfortunately, for Hagrid's coaster, at least as of the time I'm recording this, and I expect for at least the next few more months at the very least, there is no express pass entrance for Hagrid's coaster. Pretty much everything else in the Wizarding World has an express pass line, but not Hagrid's coaster. So the way that you're going to ride this is either through the standby line, which is the same line as everybody else, or through single rider. So there is a single rider entrance here. This is a really good way to skip some of the line. So I want to kind of tell you how I did it. I was able to ride this 3 times in an hour when I went to Universal on this last trip. And I think that the way that I did it, I think it's going to give you the best chance to have the same kind of an experience. So here's the thing, and this is the other thing you're expecting me to say. You need to get there first. This is going to be the way for you to get on this ride without waiting for 2 hours. Because if you are not first, you're going to be last for the Hagrid's coaster. So these are kind of my top tips for how to make this happen and be most efficient with your touring for this coaster. First thing, get to the park gates at least 45 minutes before park opening. There's rarely early admission at Islands of Adventure. It's almost always over at Universal Studios. In some ways, that's an advantage for this touring, because when there's early admission over at Universal Studios, most people actually will go over there. Most of your early bird, people who are going to the parks, they're going to take advantage of that early admission. They're going to go over to Universal Studios first. So even if there's no early admission at Islands of Adventure, I recommend, if Hagrid's Coaster is your top priority, go to Islands of Adventure for that 9 a.m. park opening. Arrive there around 8:15. 8 o'clock would be really awesome, depending on, kind of how busy it is when you're visiting. But at least get there by around 8:15. This is going to put you towards the very front of the lines at the turnstiles. And that is, again, just putting you in front of everybody else. As you've heard, if you've listened to my episode 7, a big part of that is about what to expect when the gates open. The gates are going to open about 15 minutes prior to the announced opening time. So you get there around 8:15. You should be stepping into the park about 8:45. Okay, now here's the other thing that's really going to increase your chances of being one of the first on the ride, and that is, don't carry anything that you can't zip into your pockets. Hagrid's Coaster, just like almost all of the rides in the Wizarding World, has lockers, and if you have anything that you can't zip in your pockets, then you're going to be forced to go to a locker and put it in a locker before you get on the ride. So this includes hats. This includes, obviously backpacks, purses, a camera that's on a strap, anything like that. If you can't zip it in your pockets, you're going to have to stop at a locker on the way into the ride and, spend some time figuring that out instead of just going straight into the queue. So, don't carry a bag. If you can avoid it, don't carry a bag or anything that you can't put in your pockets into the park first thing in the morning. Now, you might have a lucky situation where someone in your group isn't going to ride this coaster, and then they can just hold your stuff, and then same thing, you can just walk right onto the ride. Another thing that I did this time that worked really well for me here, and especially when I did another very extreme rope drop on this trip, and I'll tell you guys about that in another episode coming up. But what I did is, I'm a fan of those drawstring backpacks that are just like, it's just like a flat nylon bag with like a drawstring straps. I think those are really handy for park touring. And what I did this time is I took one of those little bags and I just folded it up and I put it in my pocket. And so when I went into the park, I didn't have a bag. I wasn't carrying a bag. I just had it kind of tucked away. And that way I could just walk onto the ride and skip the lockers. And then later in the day, when I bought some souvenirs and I had a bottle of water to carry or whatever, then I pulled the backpack out of my pocket and I just carried it as backpack. So that's kind of a way to get around it. Tuck a bag into your pocket somewhere and then just pull it out later, but don't have it out when you first get there, and time is really of the essence. Oh, another note, in case you're wondering, the Hagrid's Coaster, they do require you to put stuff in a locker, but they don't have metal detectors. A couple of the roller coasters at Universal actually require you to have no metal and nothing, like no loose change, none of it on you when you go on the ride. And they send you through a metal detector to make sure you don't have it. It's the Hulk coaster and the Rip Ride Rocket. Both of those have that requirement. Hagrid's Coaster does not. So if you have your phone, let's say, zipped in your pocket or a camera or something like that, you're fine to go on to this ride. So you don't have to like have nothing on you. Again, just needs to be tucked away someplace safe so it won't fly out of your pocket on the ride. All right, so you guys got up early. You're one of the first ones in the park, and now you're heading towards Hogsmeade Village because that's where this coaster is. And here's the thing to know. Universal, because this is such a popular first destination in the morning, they've got a special line that starts before you even get to Hogsmeade to kind of route you like a back way to the Hagrid's coaster line. So there's kind of separating out the people who want to ride that, and they're sending them down a little bit of a back way. And you need to make sure that you actually go that way as you approach Hogsmeade, because if you just walk straight into Hogsmeade, you are not going to be in the right line. You can easily go ride Forbidden Journey or Hogwarts Express or do something else in Hogsmeade if you just walk right in. But if you want to ride this Hagrid's coaster, you need to look for the signs, and they will have park employees there as well pointing their way. So watch for those signs, because that's going to make sure and get you the right place. Because you don't want to miss that, walk into the village and then realize, oh, now I have to backtrack and there's like 200 people just walked in front of you in the line. So watch for that. That's a little heads up. Start looking for it after you pass the Mythos restaurant in that part of the park. And it's not too long after that where you're going to see how they're going to kind of send you off in your own special direction. Okay, so you're going to be in the line. You're going to just walk right past the lockers. Whole bunch of people are going to peel off to go put their stuff in the lockers. But since you don't have to, now you just go straight into the queue for the line. And if you are one of these first people into the park and the ride is running like it should be, then you're just going to walk right on. You're just going to, it's a long walk though, you guys. I swear it's like a half a mile between the entrance, the quote unquote entrance to this ride, and the actual getting all the way onto it. So there's a lot of walking around and weaving. You're going to walk for like 10 minutes probably. And then finally you will be there. And, you know, when you get up to the front too, make a decision before you get there. Who's going to ride on the motorcycle and who's going to ride in the sidecar, so that you guys are in the, you're ready, so that when it's time to load, you can just get on. This is it's a really efficient loading system on this ride. It's a moving conveyor belt alongside the ride vehicle, and so you just are getting on as the thing is moving forward. So Universal wants you to be efficient in getting on there and not standing there arguing about who's riding on the motorcycle. So be ready for that. After you've ridden it the first time, you may still just be able to go right back through the main queue and get right back on it. That's pretty much how it was for me. There was a little bit of a delay by then, but it's still 15 minutes maybe, and I was on the ride again. And then after that, or even at that point, you can choose to ride single. The way the single rider line is working right now anyway, you go through the same line with everybody else. So you still have to wait quite a while. By that time I did, it was probably 15 or 20 minutes till we got close to the entrance to the building, and then there was someone there who was pulling singles out, and at that point she pulled me out and I entered the building, and I was on the ride in like 2 minutes, where I'm sure I bypassed 10 or 15 minutes easily of wait. So single rider is not an instant thing on this ride. I'll tell you what, you guys, I rode single on Gringotts a couple times, and that literally was like as fast as I could walk into the ride, I was on it. So this one doesn't quite work that way, at least right now. Again, the system here is probably going to change over time, but singles still is going to save you some time. So if you want to ride it, multiple times or a little bit later in the day or something like that, you can use the single rider as a way to bypass at least some of the line. And at some point, Universal says that this ride will have what they call a virtual queue. And virtual queue basically means that you just get in line via the app, and then they tell you when it's time for you to come and ride, and then you don't hardly have to wait at all to get on. And I think initially had said that it was going to open with this type of a queue, but it hasn't. And there's really no indication when that's going to happen or really if it is. So, if you're listening to this 2 years from now, the system could be different than what I'm describing here. So always, do your homework before you head out to these parks. I highly recommend the unofficial guide to Universal Orlando. That's going to give you really up-to-date information and, tons of touring tips too. Those guys are amazing. And the Touring Plans Lines app is also a really good resource for helping you plan your touring. So just keep in mind that these things do change over time, and I'm sure at some point there will be an Express Pass entrance for this ride, and that's going to be a real game changer for anybody who is touring with an Express Pass at Universal. All right, so I also want to just take a minute and talk a little bit about the other big attraction that's in this part of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and that's the Forbidden Journey ride, which is inside of the Hogwarts Castle. Forbidden Journey is an amazing ride, and you will have heard me describe it on episode 5, and it's still a really popular ride. I mean, it was the original first thing that opened when the Wizarding World opened many years ago now, and it's still super, super popular. The thing is, when you're trying to figure out if you only have one day at Islands of Adventure, should you make the effort and take the time to do Hagrid's Coaster first, or should you do Forbidden Journey first? I have some thoughts about that. So, for one thing, it's possible that you won't even have to make a choice. I mean, if you show up and they're not going to let you get in line for Hagrid's Coaster if it isn't running. So you could get there and they might say Hagrid's Coaster is down. It's not open right now. And then, just pivot and go straight to Forbidden Journey, you guys. Forbidden Journey 2, if Hagrid's Coaster is down, Forbidden Journey's line will be longer, but they have Express Pass entrance and they have a single rider entrance that's a really good way to bypass the line. So just use that as your plan B if Hagrid's Coaster is your top choice. I personally think that for any time of day, the line at Forbidden Journey is going to be shorter than the wait at the Hagrid's Coaster. So getting there first and doing Hagrid's Coaster first is going to help you save more time than if you do Forbidden Journey first and then Hagrid's Coaster. It's just the nature of it. Now that this coaster is opened over there at Islands of Adventure, it's taking some of the people who would normally be in the Forbidden Journey line, and now they're standing in that line to ride Hagrid's bike. So that's actually making the wait times for Forbidden Journey a little bit more reasonable. So that, in my opinion, Forbidden Journey is something that you can ride almost any time of day with less wait than you would over at Hagrid's Coaster. If you have Express Pass, Forbidden Journey is a 15-minute wait, maybe any time of day, almost any time of year. And even without Express Pass, a lot of the time the wait over there is an hour or less, and where again, this new motorbike coaster is running 2-hour waits constantly. So that's my advice. Start with the roller coaster, then go over to Forbidden Journey after that. One other tip that you might want to try if it's not running when you first get in the park, or you just can't get there first thing. The other time of day that often has the lowest wait times at Universal is right before the park closes. So, and this is even if the park's closing at 6 p.m., you can have low wait times starting around 5 o'clock. And so keep that in mind. If you can't do it first, then do it last. I guess. Give that a try. Keep an eye on the wait times. And if you see the time starting to drop, you might want to run over there and get in the line. And, because it breaks down so much, the bottom line is if the thing is operating and you really want to ride it, just go wait in the line. And I think you're going to find that it's really worth waiting for. So bottom line, I think you guys have figured out. I give this ride 2 thumbs up for sure. It was definitely one of the highlights of my trip was getting to ride this thing, especially 3 times. That was super cool. And I really recommend that you give it a try. I thank you so much for listening. Thank you for subscribing to the show. I do have a lot of new stuff to tell you about, so make sure you hit the subscribe button, because that way when the show, anything new comes out, you will get it delivered directly to your app, and then you won't miss any of the new episodes. And I do have something so exciting to tell you about probably in the next episode. So stay tuned for that. And thanks again to all of you guys who've been writing reviews for the show. And it's super, super helpful. So if you have a minute to even just give it 5 stars, you don't have to write a whole review. Any of that is really, really helpful in helping other people find the show too. So thanks for reviewing and sharing the show out and helping spread the word. I really, really appreciate it. And again, thanks for listening. I will see you next time, and I hope you have a world-class vacation.